Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Welcome to First Parish Unitarian Universalist of Chelmsford. We are a covenantal community gathered for worship, mutual care, faith formation through spiritual learning, and ethical discernment, and in service to a common good. I'd like to extend a special welcome to anyone visiting us for the first time. We're glad you joined us today, and you can learn more or contact us via our website, uuchelmsford.org, or email dre@uuchelmsford.org. I'm Reverend Ellen Spiro, and I'm leading the service today with Steve Zaki, our music director. Leslie Yakos will be offering our chalice lighting, and Rick Warner will be leading us in our covenant. Caroline Snow is our greeter. Edith Murphy and David Seltz are our ushers, and we have a team this morning to run our worship tech, for which we are deeply grateful. And apologize for a bit of the delay this morning, but we got it figured out. Our worship services are multi-platform, with people attending in the sanctuary and from home. If you're attending from home, Joan Coyne is our online chat host, and if you wish to join the online chat, you need to join the worship service through the YouTube link option and log into your Google account. If you're attending in the sanctuary, be aware that the service is being live streamed and recorded to post on our website. The ushers, Edith and Dave, can help you find seating that's not within view of the camera, and we also have a section over here for social distance seating. However you are joining us this morning, we are so glad you're here, and I'd like you to take a moment to say not only hello to each other, but hello to the people watching from home. If you want to turn around and wave and say, "Good morning, good morning." Here we all are. I have a couple of brief announcements. Our Canvas chair, Doug Aker, made a very good observation, which is inviting us to wear our name tags again. After 2 years of almost no in-person services and with the masks, it's sometimes hard to know who you're talking to. So if we could do that, get back in that habit, that would be great. In addition, our Canvas team is grateful for the strong response we've received for the first 2 weeks of our stewardship drive. 61 First Parish members and friends' households have renewed their commitment to fund our next church year and submitted their pledges. Thank you very much. And some of the pledges we've received include feedback in the comments section, and here is what one person wrote. "Thank you to everyone for the monumental effort you made to keep us all connected during the past couple years of this pandemic." Finally, we will have social hour online after the service, hosted today by Elliot Bayer, and we'll provide the Zoom link at the end. We've also opened the vestry for people to gather for socializing after the service, although we're not serving food or beverages at this time. If you are interested, however, in being the person to organize at least having coffee and tea, please email office@uuchelmsford.org, and maybe we can start that again soon. But for now, we need people. No magic, remember? Let's center ourselves for worship. Thank you, Steve.
Good morning. My name is Leslie Yakos, and I am here representing the nominating committee. The five of us are nominating: Gail Barati, Caroline Snow, Dee Halzak, Laura Nutter, and myself are responsible for recruiting and supporting our elected officers here at First Parish. Some of you may have been approached by us to run for an office, or in other words, to take a leadership position in the church. And we thank you so much for accepting. At our annual meeting in June, the congregation will vote on the slate of officers that the nominating committee has recruited. I asked our committee to come up with some ideas for chalice lighting that would be appropriate for today as we continue our search for official candidates. Laura Nutter sent me her thoughts connecting what the nominating committee does to Ellen's sermon on long haul people from February. I will quote what Laura sent me. Back in February, we read the poem Long Haul People by Rudy Memser. In her sermon, Reverend Ellen told us of her experience with some of First Parish's long haul people. She reminded us that we have a church today because of the work of such folks years ago. And if we are to have a church years from now, it will be because of the work of today's long haul people. The nominating committee recruits candidates for elected positions on the standing committee, the Board of Investment, the nominating committee, the treasurer, assistant treasurer, clerk, and collector. Another way of describing our work would be to say that we are looking for long haul people, the people in Rudy Memser's words, which I will quote from her poem. Upon whose shoulders and pocketbooks and casseroles and daylight nighttime hours a church is built and maintained after the brass is tarnished and the cushions need restitching. Right now is a particularly difficult time to be a long haul person. COVID has been a much longer haul than most anyone would have guessed. For 2 years now, many of us have had to deal with shifting expectations about work, schooling, childcare, even grocery shopping. We know taking on new commitments at church is a lot to ask, and we thank those who have said yes. For those we have yet to ask, please remember that we need you so that, to paraphrase Rudy Memser, this church, our church, can be here steady and hale for a long, long time. It can be for long haul people, bless a church with a very special blessing. We light the chalice today to celebrate this special blessing.
Good morning. My name is Rick Warner, and I am a member of the worship committee, and I'm also one of those persons that was approached by the nominating committee. Last Sunday, Diana Kahane did the parish covenant, First Parish covenant a little bit different, doing the English and then reading a sentence in Spanish. I liked it so much that I'm going to do it the same way. We, the members of First Parish, covenant together to sustain and strengthen our beloved community by nosotros, los miembros de la primera parroquia de Chelmsford, convenemos juntos a sostener y fortalecer nuestra amada comunidad en honoring and celebrating the spirit of life, honrando y celebrando el espíritu de la vida, nurturing all souls in our search for truth and the sacred, nutriendo toda almas en búsqueda de la verdad y lo sagrado, caring and being present to one another in our joys and sorrows, cuidar y estar presentes al uno y otro en nuestras alegrías y tristezas, bearing witness through service to justice and peace, da testimonio mediante servicio a la justicia y paz, and being good stewards of our congregation, our heritage, our Unitarian Universalist principles, and our earth, y ser buenos cuidadores de nuestra congregación, nuestra herencia, nuestros principios unitarios, universalistas, y la tierra. It's true, I am a techno-ninny. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite us now to pause in gratitude for the gifts of this congregation, what we offer each other of our time, our talent, and our treasure that makes us able to live into our covenant and this community here for the long haul, as Leslie put it. We're not passing the plate. If you wish to leave a donation on your way out, you may do so. You may donate online or any other way, but I invite us into a time for gratitude. Thank you, Steve. I don't know if this is an ancient reading. I'll say it's an old reading. I don't know what year marks what's ancient and what's not. But this is an excerpt from a poem by the Persian Muslim mystic and writer Rumi. And it's translated by Coleman Barks, and it's from his poem, Great Wagon. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Our modern reading is by Unitarian Universalist minister Gordon McKeeman, and it's number 19 in Lifting Our Voices. How does one address a mystery? Cautiously. Let us go cautiously then to the end of our certainty, to the boundary of all we know, to the rim of uncertainty, to the perimeter of the unknown which surrounds us. Reverently. Let us go with a sense of awe, a feeling of approaching the powerful holy whose lightning slashes the sky, whose persistence splits concrete with green sprouts, whose miracles are present in every place and every moment. Hopefully, out of a need for wholeness in our lives, the reconciliation of mind and heart, the conjunction of reason and passion, the intersection of the timeless with time. Quietly, for no words will explain the inarticulate or summon the presence that is always present, even in our absence. But what shall I say? Anything. Any anger, any hope, any fear, any joy, any request, any word that comes from the depth of being addressed to being itself. Or perhaps nothing. No complaint, no request, no entreating, no thanksgiving, no praise, no blame, no pretense of knowing or of not knowing. Simply be in the intimate presence of mystery, unashamed, unadorned, unafraid, and at the end say, Amen. I'd just like to invite us to be still for a moment, to be aware of the presence of one another and our source of being within and all around. Amen. Blessed be. Last Sunday, I shared how the word religion comes from the Latin and Old French word religare, to bind or to tie. And at its heart, religion is about naming the ties that bind us to what is sacred, holy, worthy of our deepest commitments. The word worship comes from an Old English word, which I'm not sure I can pronounce correctly, worthshipe, which according to entomononline.com means condition of being worthy, dignity, glory, distinction, honor, renown. And worthshipe became worthship, which then became worship. In other words, to worship means to lift up, honor, celebrate that which we trust is worthy, has dignity, glory, distinction, renown. We lift up what is worthy of our deepest commitments. In some religions, that worship is centered on God or the divine. In others, it may be of ancestors, the natural world, religious values and practices that people feel called to give their lives to. As Unitarian Universalists, we're kind of all over the map, but our worship tends to fall in this latter category. As a covenantal tradition, we're concerned more with right relationship than right belief. In other words, our worship lifts up, honors, and celebrates the sacred and the holy we find in sharing this life and this world. in creating and sustaining beloved community through the values to which we are committed, like justice, equity, and compassion, open search for truth, human worth and dignity, and caring for the interdependent web of all existence. Worship can take place in many different ways, alone or with a group of people. In our context, worship is the central corporate act that we do together that gathers us as a religious community. Every week, on the same day, at the same time, we engage in this practice with words and music and the lighting of a chalice and sharing joys and sorrows, time for quiet, time for fellowship. And I know that not every person who comes to First Parish comes for the worship. We come for all kinds of reasons, and these reasons may change over time. Some of us are here because we find support in difficult times, and we find friendship with people who share our values. Some of us are here to get involved with social outreach or justice work. Some of us are here to sing and to listen to amazing music. Some of us are here for care and support in raising our children. But as a community, as a whole, worship is what we do first and foremost that makes us a religious community as opposed to a secular organization or agency. If a mission statement says what our purpose is, what we do, our first purpose is to gather for worship. And that practice centers us for our other purposes, the mutual care, faith formation through spiritual learning, ethical discernment, and serving our larger world. We can do those other things without being part of a worshiping community. We can find support and friendship or opportunities for singing or learning or connecting our children with other families or for volunteering to help others or advocate for justice. But to make time each week to come together, to pause and ground ourselves in the ties that bind us to what is sacred, what is worthy of our deepest commitments, to lift up, honor, name, and celebrate them, that is this work. And worship is also the consistent thing that we have done together in this congregation since it was founded in 1655. Think about that for a moment. The liturgy, the shape and content of our worship services has certainly changed a little bit over the generations, and our Puritan ancestors might not recognize what we're doing here as worship. In fact, they're probably horrified. But every Sunday for 367 years or so, this congregation has gathered for worship. The people have come and gone, as have the ministers and other leaders. The hymns and rituals have changed. Some of those have come and gone. Even the building has come and gone. This is the fourth meeting house. But worship, the gathering in covenant to bind ourselves to walk together in the ways of truth and love as they are revealed to us by what we experience as sacred and holy. This our ancestors passed on to us, and this we continue, not just for ourselves, but in stewardship for those who will come after us. I really think that's so amazing, so cool, and that's probably why I'm a minister, because I think this is really cool. Obviously, the pandemic has had a huge impact on worship. We could no longer gather in the same physical space. In fact, it was dangerous to do so. And even 2 years later, with vaccinations and treatments, it still remains risky for quite a few of us. We had to adapt quickly in the crisis to offer worship that didn't require us to be together, or rather, required us to be together differently. We were blessed to be able to access the technology to do so and have people in our congregation with the knowledge and skills and the willingness to learn them to make worship happen online. Technology in worship, live streaming services, the use of videos and slides and projecting words and hymns and readings on a screen rather than using hymnals or paper orders of service is something that I've been hearing about in ministerial circles for quite a while. Our Catholic and evangelical siblings have been live streaming and integrating multimedia into their services for a long, long time, as have a growing number of Unitarian Universalist congregations, even before the pandemic. That said, we were not at all alone when we had to learn on the fly during the pandemic. Many of our Unitarian Universalist siblings and religious communities in Chelmsford had to turn on the same dime as us. And overall, I think we did really well, even as we continue to learn. Amen, indeed. Thank you, Maura. Now, as we're starting to emerge, I hope, please, from the acute crisis of the pandemic and learning to live in this very changed world, we are at a crossroads with many things, including worship. We can't return to what we did before the pandemic. We made a commitment to keeping multi-platform worship. We now have to think about what that means. What does it mean to gather for worship when we are not all in the same physical space? Because even if the pandemic were to end today, there are reasons why people will continue to attend from home, whether because it's still too risky health-wise, or because they do not have access to transportation, or because they live too far away, or because, frankly, it's just a lot more convenient with all the other demands to attend from home. It helps alleviate that parking problem that we talked about for so many years. And it's also true that for many others, gathering in the same room, embodying the community through worship in the same physical space is essential. More than me talking at you or anything else, being together in body and spirit to experience the ties that bind us, not just to the sacred, but to one another. I have felt the fraying that was happening the longer we could not offer opportunities for us to gather as an embodied community. So this is not an either or. This is a both and. It's a polarity, which we need to learn to balance and manage. What we might individually need or want may be different from what our other fellow First Parishers need and want. But ultimately, worship is not about getting a personalized experience. It's about lifting up, honoring, and celebrating the ties that bind us to the sacred and to the holy, to one another and to the earth, to our deepest commitments, hopes, loves, and healing. Technology is fun for some and scary for others. It can be a source of creativity that will allow us to do all kinds of new things. But, or and maybe, technology is not the center of worship. It's not what we worship. It doesn't drive it. Because the mission of worship is not to be high production entertainment. We use technology in service of worship, not the other way around. The pandemic has changed more than just how we do worship on Sundays. It has changed the structures around it, the roles and responsibilities of Steve and myself and Dolores and the worship committee and the ushers and the greeters and the social hour hosts have all changed. We had to create a worship tech team and online chat hosts and online social hour hosts. We had to create policies around live streaming and protocols for being in the sanctuary together. The website team had to connect worship to our website and find ways to do an online chat. Steve and the choirs had to figure out how to rehearse online and record tracks for choral anthems that Steve then has to gather and mix. With our children and youth not yet fully vaccinated, we've had to find alternative ways to hold our intergenerational rituals, like water communion and flower communion and gathering for Thanksgiving. Over this past year, I've organized 3 worship summits, gathering the worship committee, or was it 2? I can't remember. Gathering the worship committee, the worship tech team, Steve, Dolores, representatives from the web team, the COVID task force, and the standing committee, with several members wearing multiple hats in these meetings, by the way, so that we could all talk together as we're all learning how to support worship under these changing conditions. They were very productive meetings and helped us take some intermediate steps, like finding a way to show video in the sanctuary and at home for those who would want to pre-record a child sighting or the covenant, or offering the online chat via YouTube for those who want the chat, but keeping the straight broadcast feed for those who find the chat distracting. As we enter year 3 of this pandemic, we can start to attend to what we see wants to emerge with regard to worship. What practices, structures, and assumptions do we need to let go of? Which ones do we need to reclaim and renew? And what new ones do we need to bring into being? I think that is going to be a major focus, not just for me as the minister and the person primarily responsible for worship, but for us as a congregation, gathered in the practice of beloved community. We know, as a community who has worshiped together for 367 years, that our ways of worship will evolve and change as we discover new ways of walking together in the spirit of truth and love as they are revealed to us. As we figure out how to worship in this new landscape, what new technologies and structures we might employ, we also need to stay grounded in the essential questions. What is the purpose of our worship, and does how we worship truly express and reflect our faith? How we understand the ties that bind us to the sacred, to what we hold as worthy of our deepest commitments. To lift up and honor and name the beauty we love so it can be what we do mindfully on behalf of our own souls and the soul of the world. How does one address a mystery? Cautiously. Let us go cautiously then to the end of our uncertainty, to the boundary of all we know, to the rim of uncertainty, to the perimeter of the unknown which surrounds us. Reverently, let's go with a sense of awe, a feeling of approaching the powerful holy whose lightning slashes the sky, whose persistence splits concrete with green sprouts, whose miracles are present in every place and moment. Hopefully, out of a need for wholeness in our lives, the reconciliation of mind and heart, the conjunction of reason and passion, the intersection of the timeless with time. Quietly, for no words will explain the inarticulate or summon the presence that is always present, even in our absence. And at the end, may we say, Amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Steve. I have one, I think, joy to share. I was on the phone this week with Justine Sullivan, former intern, I should say the Reverend Justine Sullivan, our former intern. She says hello, and she has been nominated to run for the Unitarian Universalist Association Board of Trustees. So we will vote for her. Because sanity is always a good thing. I'd like to invite us now to center ourselves again, still. And I was thinking about this practice that Diana Cohane shared from a church, UU church she attended in Florida, when during Joys and Sorrows, people were invited in the quiet to say silently or aloud, whether they were in the sanctuary or at home, the names of anyone that they are holding and would like to lift up in this time of joys and sorrows. So I'd like to invite us to do that if we wish. So as we open ourselves to our source of life, within us, among us, around us, and beyond us, I invite us to listen deeply to the joys and sorrows spoken and unspoken. As we gather these joys and sorrows, spoken and unspoken, I came across this poem that I wanted to share as a way to walk us into prayer and meditation. It's called Mimesis by Fadi Judah. My daughter wouldn't hurt a spider that had nested between her bicycle handles for 2 weeks. She waited until it left on its own accord. If you tear down the web, I said, it will simply know this isn't a place to call home, and you can go biking. She said, that's how others become refugees, isn't it? Spirit of life and love. As we inhabit and make our way in the world on this earth, maybe we be aware of the sacred ties, the threads, fragile and almost invisible, that connect us to one another, to those near and far, to all life with whom we share this creation, and to you, however we know you. May we be open and wise to the wisdom offered to us in unexpected places. From the clear eyes of children and the workings of life all around us. May we find hope in this and heal the heartbreak where we can. May we use our voices and our hearts, our hands, and our feet in service of blessing. Amen, and blessed be. We're going to sing. Spirit of love, of the stirrings of compassion, in the wind, as in the sea, move in the land, giving life a shape of justice. Wounds that we cause, wings set me free. Spirit of love, come to me, come to me. For our benediction, yes, isn't it great? And of course, I couldn't sing because I got too choked up. One of the things I've said about hymns is that we sing together is that as we go through experiences together, they change their meaning. Anyway, for our benediction, I spent some time this week, for whatever reason, with Muslim mystic poets. And this is another one, Muhyiddin ibn al-Arabi, who lived from 1165 to 1240 in Spain and Syria. And he writes, "There was a time when I would reject those who were not of my faith, but now my heart has grown capable of taking on all forms. It is a pasture for gazelles, an abbey for monks, a table for the Torah, Kaaba for the pilgrim. My religion is love. Whichever the route love's caravan shall take, that shall be part of my faith." May it be so.